Hello, Janesville, and welcome back to Park Place Views, the monthly program that aims to keep Janesville residents informed by highlighting the people, places, and partners of the City of Janesville. As always, this program is brought to you by the City of Janesville and JATV Media Services. I'm your host, Betsabe Ramos, the communications intern for the City of Janesville. In last month's episode, we sat down with Janesville Fire Department Chief Ryan Murphy to discuss the completion of his first year as fire chief and give us an update on the latest projects the JFD has worked on. Today I'm being joined by Janesville Police Department Chief Chad Pearson. Chief Pearson has been with the JPD for nearly 30 years and has served in various roles, including Deputy Chief and Acting Chief since September of 2023. Chad, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So Chief, before we get started, I wanted to give you the opportunity to tell our viewers a bit more about yourself.
Well, when you said 30 years, I'm feeling old. A little bit more, and I know I've been interviewed before in the past, and some of the things that people find interesting is I'm a third-generation police officer. My great-grandfather was I think in police, so I'm not counting him as a generation, but my grandfather was a police officer. Actually, was a deputy, a police officer, and a police chief at one point in Illinois. Both of my parents worked in law enforcement, and now being the third generation, I finally left the state of Illinois and came up here to Wisconsin. So I'm passionate about public service, and I kind of grew up in this environment. So that's what kind of drew me to my line of profession. But really what speaks volumes for me is my family. They're my motivation behind everything, why I do what I do, and the most meaningful things that I have. I have a wife who's very hardworking. We have 5 children together. The oldest is 14, the youngest is 5. 3 boys, 2 girls. The 5-year-old I think might be feral. I'm not sure. She's very unstructured in her lifestyle, but it's constant entertainment for me, and it's a great break from the stresses of this job to get the opportunity to have that love and connection when I get into my household. But one of the other things that actually a lot of people would probably assume based on kind of looking at me, I played a few years in football through high school and into college, and had a professional tryout for a short stint of time. And I'm actually this year coaching at Parker High School as a varsity linebacker coach. So
wow.
Super excited about this opportunity. It was provided by Joe Flister, who is one of our firefighters as well. So kind of a cool experience. I've been coaching for over 12 years now.
Wow, that's awesome. So you're a man of many talents, and you love to give back to the community, which is such an important thing to have, especially here in Janesville. That's awesome.
Yeah, and Janesville being such a growing community and so accepting, it's like I always feel like I want to give back as much as I can.
Wow, that's amazing. So your 2-year anniversary of serving as chief of the police department is coming up. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So what have been some highlights that you've had since taking over the department?
The biggest highlight is always, for me, is the community's response to our services that we provide. Janesville is an incredible community that's transitioning quite a bit. I mean, the culture, the climate, everything is changing. Through Janesville, we're growing as a community, and I cannot say in my 27 years there was a period of time where we were not supported, or at least I never had that feeling as though we were not being supported. The people that reach out and express their appreciation for what our officers do and their professional nature is meaningful to us, and I think that's the biggest thing that it's still to this day I hold near and dear to my heart. Some of the other development things internally that have changed significantly over the past couple of years is we did a complete restructure of our administrative organization through attrition and retirements and things. We ended up having to promote 2 deputy chiefs that have taken control of our support services and operations. That's Josh Norm and Mark Ratzloff, and they're doing an incredible job. The organization hasn't missed a beat. And the 3 of us working jointly in a collaborative effort has, I feel as though, has changed the culture of our internal organization, which has increased our morale. So it's been a lot of work for us 3 to come together as to how we're going to continue keeping the high level of professional expectation our community has. My predecessor, David Moore, did a phenomenal job with what he was doing, and I was like a sponge and took a lot of it from him. So, but maybe a couple of the other little nuggets that are out there that are outside of the organization that are kind of, I'm proud of how we handled them. It's unfortunate the circumstances that were brought to us. is the tornado coming through Janesville, highly unexpected. Even though we plan for those moments, it's quite a challenge to collaboratively work with other resources to make sure that we're providing, the necessary safety precautions that are needed for such an event to occur. And the whole community of Janesville, and then the Janesville, municipality in itself, and all the employees coming together to be able to keep that, that moment that was tragic in some semblance of composure. And it was impressive when it happened. And then we did have a few other moments through the last couple of years that were off-putting. We had a couple of our officers that were shot at. We had an officer-involved shooting incident, which is unfortunate when those circumstances come to light, but from a leadership standpoint, our organization handled it with the highest level of dignity and professionalism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's awesome that I asked you about highlights, but you also included the negatives that highly impacted your department and the city as a whole. So I really appreciate that. That's awesome.
No problem.
Yeah. Now, when you became chief, you spoke on one of your goals being to improve homelessness in Janesville. So how have you and other police officials been actively working towards this goal?
That's a complex problem and a hard question actually to answer. So to keep it kind of straightforward with it, it's a work in progress. Our unsheltered matters that we're addressing are more of a social issue and less of a law enforcement issue. So coming out publicly and just basically saying, like, this is not a law enforcement problem we can fix. And what I mean by that is that we can't arrest our way out of that problem. We need the assistance of other resources to collaborate together and respond to the issues that we're addressing. And what I mean by that and what we're working towards in our development is a co-responder type design is what we're looking at trying to do. And that would be having our nonprofit organizations and law enforcement collaboratively communing together as, so to say, a committee or a team. And when we have circumstances that we need to engage in that involve our unsheltered, we would make a determination if the nonprofit organization is going to respond or the police department is going to respond or both entities are going to respond. And we're starting to build a structure to this. We're trying to put together a group of individuals that want to spearhead this. It's probably the one time in my entire career where, as a law enforcement officer, we didn't come to the table with a solution and try to make it go forward, but rather we're coming to the table with a concept for another entity to take the lead and run with the solution or figure out a solution. So really what we want to do is become a support service to, the nonprofit organizations to help these individuals change their lifestyle or move on in their lifestyle where they're living a more comfortable, structured life. Because a lot of times homelessness being so complex in the nature of it, everybody who is homeless is not the same story. I reluctantly say this, the stigma of they're all lazy is not accurate. Some people are down on their luck, they've got mental health issues, they've got addiction issues. We got to look at the complexity of the problem and address it with the resources that can appropriately handle those. And that's what we're trying to focus on now.
Yeah, and in my short time here in Janesville, I've seen so many nonprofit organizations that would 100% be willing to help with that issue. So it's wonderful that the JPD is willing to work together with those nonprofit organizations.
And exactly to what you're saying too, feeds into where we're falling short a little bit. And that's there's several organizations that want to help, but none of it is structured at this point. So one organization is doing one thing and another's doing another, and the police department's handling things. And what I'm looking to do is to bring all that together at the same table, and let's come up with some degree of a solution and run with it, and we'll refine as we go. And I can tell you that I've already spoke with individuals that are interested in wanting to make this a go, and we're going to continue with that coordination of effort.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for speaking on that.
No problem.
So now that we're in September, the school year is starting back up. So how is the JPD preparing for kids to return to the classrooms and for family activities throughout the city?
The school starting up is always an interesting time for us because our school resource officers are naturally busy in getting back into the school, starting to coordinate with some of the staff that they're coming into contact with, and then getting information out to our parents. Every year when school starts, we have the same problem starting to arise, and we're trying to systematically address reducing it, and that is parking and traffic and speeding around the schools.
Yes.
I understand that parents want to drop their kids off at school and they want to do it safely, but when you're parking in areas that are not designated for parking, you're obscuring some of the line of sight for kids crossing the street or riding their bicycles and stuff. So we started increasing our volume of patrol officers to actually go to some of the schools and kind of monitor that. And then our school resource officers work with the staff who then monitor out around the building and stuff. So those are probably the two biggest concerns we have when school is actually starting.
Yeah. So you mentioned your school resource officers. So could you tell us a little more about what is it that they do in the school buildings and how do they help students throughout the day?
I mean, first and foremost, our school resource officers are an incredible asset to the school system and our community. First and foremost, they're there for protection. That's the obvious, right? I mean, that physical presence is important for people to feel safe and secure, especially with some of the events that have been happening on a national level, and somewhat near here on a few occasions too, with active threats. But what they're also there for is mentorship. Mentorship not only just for the students, but also for the staff as well. They put forth a lot of effort in deconfliction and addressing internal issues that are safety concerns for the school without arrests. They're trying to work with the staff on how to reduce friction with students or avoid a child from getting into more trouble than need be. We don't want that stigma attached to them. They'll do follow-up connections with students that aren't showing up to school. They'll check with the parents. Now that I mentioned parents, that also brings forward another level of what they're working with, and that's taking a chance or the time to explain to the parents what their purpose in the school is and allow them an opportunity to ask questions. It's ironic because a lot of our students that have even graduated oftentimes will reach back out to the school resource officers with questions because they develop that kind of personal connection with them, and it makes them feel comfortable with wanting to talk to obviously the officer, but I also want to say that in those situations, because they become close enough with the students, they have that personal connection. They talk to what they feel is a mentor and a person, not just a uniform and an officer, if that makes any kind of sense.
Yeah, and I've gotten the pleasure to meet so many of those SROs throughout the summer, and it's been great to see, and it's so clear to see that this is what they're meant to do. They do such a phenomenal job with kids, with families, and with staff members, and it's just been a pleasure to get to know those officers.
I think this new core of school resource officers we have, they're very entertained by themselves as well.
they do
are. Some
interesting
Facebook posts and stuff.
They're bright individuals.
And I mean that as a compliment because they do take their job very seriously, but they're having fun doing it, and that's the best part of all of it. And if they're enjoying themselves and people are appreciating their presence, that's a sign of how close that our school district and our police department is and the community is with our organization. And those are kind of little measures that I use to recognize, are we going the right direction? And when you talk about them, it really kind of confirms that we're on the right path.
Yeah, they're amazing. They're amazing officers. So you have an event coming up on September 13th with the Rock County YMCA called Walk a Mile in Her Shoes. So how long has the JPD been involved in this tradition, and what kind of impact do you hope it makes on the community of Janesville?
The Walk a Mile is actually an event that I actually hold a little bit personal because, not because of a personal experience of my own, but because it stemmed from our domestic violence intervention team, and the original concept of the DVI program was a discussion that was through retired Police Chief David Moore, now retired Sergeant Ann Brophy, and myself. And Sergeant Brophy and myself were the two that first started putting together how our domestic violence intervention team is currently operating. And it was to reduce the level of threat to those who are becoming victims of domestic violence. And what it stemmed from is realizing that in the city of Janesville, most of our homicide investigations were directly correlated to domestic violence events. So when you talk about Walk a Mile, it's an extension of the original starting of the program back in roughly 2011 when we first started doing it. And no, I don't wear heels, and no, I won't. My ankles, I think, would break if I did. But funny enough, and all kidding aside, I think it's a great event, and publicly people are responding very well to it. And what do we hope to gain from this is for those who are experiencing domestic violence and don't feel like there's any support or feel so trapped that they don't want to come forward, that we are out there supporting them. This is a great way to draw attention to it, and there are not just the police department is involved in trying to facilitate a chance to empower them to change their lifestyle, but also the YWCA is another support system that's in place. And I think that collaborative effort between the two organizations and the promotion of this event really kind of sends that message out there that if you're a victim of domestic violence, you have resources, you have support. And our goal is to empower these individuals to come forward and make changes in their personal lives.
Yeah, that's amazing. And speaking of community, the JPD hosted some really fun community events this past summer. So what could you tell us about those annual events and their significance?
You must be talking about the First Responders Splash event, where it's a big squirt gun fight for all of our officers, which actually now you're talking about our school resource officers, and School Resource Officer Benny Rocha is the first one that came forward with this kind of concept. And when he originally started talking to me, I'm like, and my question back to him was, you're a kid that just wants to have a big squirt gun fight, aren't you? And ironically enough, he laughed and said, yeah, that's what he did. But all kidding aside with the whole deal, he did actually say that, by the way, but he did see it as a way for community outreach. And I thought the idea was amazing. And it's a way for our, the youth of our community are the future leaders, down the road. And what better way to create an engagement and an understanding of, like, there is the person in a uniform, or there's a uniform, and then there's a person inside of it. For them to get to know that person inside of the uniform as an actual community member and a person that cares and likes to have a little bit of fun every so often. And who doesn't have fun squirting each other with water,
Right, especially on a hot summer day.
No kidding, right? So yeah, that event is huge. It's growing, and I am excited to see where it ends up going. Then it's our national night out. This year we did it down in the town square, which I loved it when it was at Traxler Park, but I really like it in the town square. And the officers that put that together put an incredible amount of work into it, but it was a great experience to go there and get a chance to talk to the people that showed up and support, hear their stories, allow them a chance to engage with our officers face to face, ask questions about, their personal lives and, what is their commitment to the community, but also get that opportunity for them to get to know the officer as an individual, not just the uniform thing. And like I said, I'm really big on showing the real person in the uniform, and we're not robots driving around in cars looking to try to take enforcement action on everybody. That's a misconception and urban legend. So, but I think those two events really signify what it is we're trying to do with that community engagement piece within our organization.
That's awesome. So earlier this year, the JPD launched a community outreach committee called Sueños. Now, what is the goal for an outreach group like this, and are there any plans to establish more in the near future?
To answer your question, more in the future, yes. We already have an African American Liaison Action Committee that's also designed similar to how Sueños is. Sueños was actually originally our Latino Outreach Committee, which actually started to die off, so to say. There was a lack of interest and structure to it. So we had a couple of our officers that come forward. One of them is School Resource Officer Carmen Roche, who came up with a concept that maybe we should start looking at supporting a committee versus running a committee, which is what we had been doing for several years, where with the Latino Outreach Committee, we were inviting them to the police department to come and talk to us. And we would engage with them in explaining policy procedures and what our actions and decisions are, so they had a better understanding of how we operate. And at the beginning it worked. But I think over time, either through some of the national news where there's concerns about deportation of those who are illegal immigrants, to misconceptions of profiling, to just the negative press and law enforcement in general, they started to shy away from it, and we weren't in contact. So in the new approach, it's basically separating them as an individual unit themselves, or an individual group or committee themselves, so they can address and discuss some of the concerns within the community, and then invite us in to help answer those or help relieve some of the stresses with it. And when we have events that go on, we invite them to come along to represent their view and perspective of their engagement with our agency, and let those individual groups be able to discuss their perspective versus us trying to explain, well, we got this, Latino Outreach Committee, well, what is it about? And we're telling it. We want them to tell the story. Because there might be stuff in there that we're not doing right. And we want to know that. And the only way to be able to make change is by being honest about it and addressing the change. The same structure is in place for our African American Liaison Action Committee. They meet on a regular basis. They're their own entity. They invite us to their meetings. We sit down and they'll have a list of questions for us to answer, and they're prepared for, to have an honest, open discussion to clarify miscommunications and misleading information. I mean, social media is a bit of a challenge in our field to overcome some of the misleading information that can be placed out there.
Yeah, well, that's amazing that you have that opportunity to communicate with those types of groups and just apply diversity and inclusion into your daily conversations. That's awesome.
And it's beneficial for us in a lot of ways. So Sueño started before the current trend towards, I shouldn't say the trend, more along the lines of the information that's out there that, law enforcement is going to come and pick up anybody who's an illegal immigrant and have them shipped back to their original country. It's not exactly true. And if you caught it, I had put out a press release earlier on that basically said, like, if you're not committing crimes, you're not, a felon, or I should say felony crimes. You're not a felon. You haven't been a previously deported immigrant in the past. We're not coming to look for you directly. That's not what our purpose and goal is. Now, what they do in the federal level government and their response to those who are illegal, they operate separate from us. Will we be there with them to identify a group of people who are illegal? No. If they're going to be in our community and take some level of action, will we be there to make sure that the rest of the community is safe as they do what they need to do? Yes. I mean, that's what our goal is. But how they operate and how we operate are two different entities. So we're not federal agents, and we don't act on that level. We will support for the purposes of community safety if they come here.
Awesome. So I know that the JPD also offers a child safety seat program. So when does this group meet, and what is their main objective for the City of Janesville?
The meeting is a little bit sporadic. The fire department is also involved with it. And the main objective of them getting together to do this is to make sure that parents properly fasten their kids into the safety seats that are provided to them. And I didn't even actually really pay attention to this until I started having kids of my own, but safety seats actually expire. There's expiration dates actually on them. Yes, they do. Now, what the cause of that, I'm not exactly sure, and you'd probably have to ask one of them on another show. But the purpose is to make sure that those seats are properly placed inside of the car, locked into the right direction. Some parents have a tendency of flipping the seat around a little bit too soon based off age and weight and that kind of stuff. So it's an education for the parents, and it's an insurance policy for the children that are riding in cars, that is, should there be that unfortunate accident occur, they're going to be, the possibility of an injury or potential death is reduced, drastically reduced.
Yeah, and I got the pleasure of attending one of those back in August, so it was wonderful to see how many parents actually came in and they wanted to learn. They were eager to learn. It was really cool to see that.
Yeah, it is very engaging, and like I said, when I first started having kids, I had to go and truthfully myself ask them how to properly fasten in these car seats. So we all do it.
Yeah, awesome. Now, you've had quite a few swearing-in ceremonies for new officers joining the department this year. So could you tell us what kind of preparation these officers undergo before being sworn in?
Yeah, it's very rigorous, to be honest with you. I mean, there's the application process, which is always the, do I want to do this, do I not, kind of feeling that everybody goes through. But the steps of it are, I mean, you apply, there's a written test and a physical agility that are handled on the same day. So you get stressed out mentally and physically, and you have to reach a certain standard in the written, and then there's criteria in every component of the physical agility test. You get through that, you come in and do an actual panel interview if you pass the prior two. After the panel interview, we do an assessment to determine who out of the group that we had interviewed are going to pass forward into what we call the background phase. And there's a very in-depth and sometimes somewhat personal, in a background investigation that our officers do, to make sure that this is going to be a person that's going to be a teammate and representative of our organization to appropriately, ensure the safety and security of our community. So I mean, it's really in depth, and they go into everything from financials to, even past relationships in some cases. So we're looking to see the whole person and not just little snippets of their life. And also their employment is another factor that they look at. After the background is done, it then comes through an administrative review to determine who we're going to put into the chief's interview, and we'll invite them in. There's a series of questions that we go through. Again, they're pretty challenging questions, and we put them on the spot. After the chief's interview, it goes to a police and fire commission, and after police and fire commission, if they get a job offer after that point in time, it is literally a psychological and a physical examination as well. And after that, we would offer them a position to start. And then if they're not certified, which in most cases nowadays is not, it's a 17-week academy.
Wow.
So from beginning to end, everything I just described, that's about 11 months.
Yeah, so it does take quite a while for
Correct.
you to hire somebody.
Yes, it's not an overnight task.
Yeah,
No.
awesome. So bouncing off of that, how do you acclimate new officers to the JPD? Are there any fun traditions awaiting newcomers?
Yeah, we've established a mentor program within our organization. So when we offer a position, an officer a new position, and they're coming onto our organization, they get assigned a person, similar values, similar concepts. We try to weigh it out with an officer that we already have working for us and this individual. And what the purpose of that is it's a non-threatening environment, really, so to say. It's more of like a friendship type design where the officer that's working for us would help guide them if they need a place to live, or where they should look on different sides of the town to find a place to stay, the places to go out, where some of the social settings are at, and then just some of the nuances of the city of Janesville. So there's this support system already in place. The other layer of that is our peer support program is always pushed right out in front of them as well. And the reason that we do that right away is to let the officer know that, listen, we have family values within our own organization, and we want them to feel at home. And when a person feels at home, they tend to not want to leave. So when they come in and realize that, hey, listen, I got this mentor, this person that I can ask questions throughout my entire training program, and they're not evaluating me, they're not judging me, they're just here to help. And then you got peer support that's explaining all of our work-life balances and some of the the supports that we have through them. It kind of brings them into that family environment, that team environment that we're looking for, that the team concept of it being an acronym, together each accomplishes more. So, and we try to weigh that heavily on those that are coming in through the door. And from the reviews, Sergeant Benji Thompson does a lot of our recruitment. He has gotten some positive reviews because he falls back and asks questions, what could we do better? And a lot of times we get compliments on this.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if folks at home are interested in exploring a career in law enforcement, what kind of advice would you give them?
I'd say pursue your passion. You're never going to get rich doing this job. But I tell you what, the thank yous don't come in the form of people actually saying thank you verbally to you all of the time. But that humbling feeling of knowing that you're helping your community stay safe and improving the quality of life of others that are living with it or visiting our community is something that's immeasurable. And and why I say pursue your passion, because they say this a lot, and you maybe have heard it before. Law enforcement is a calling, and it truly is that. You're going out there for the purposes of helping others, and you go home at the end of the night knowing that you did something good for your community and others that are living within it. Being a spiritual person myself, I see that as a form of my spirituality as well.
That's beautiful. Now, the JPD works really closely with the Janesville Fire Department, as we've previously mentioned, and last month, Chief Murphy spoke on the importance of collaboration. So what are your thoughts on maintaining those strong relationships?
It is critically important that we work well, and I'm a little bit sad and feel a little uncomfortable that I'm filling big shoes following Chief Murphy, because the guy's a wealth of knowledge and a great chief. He's doing a great job in what he's doing, but also has been a friend of mine for several years, even before we got to this level. But it's ironic. This is a really good question, because having connections throughout the entire country with police chiefs and administrators all over, oftentimes most municipalities and agencies, police and fire, don't collaborate. They don't work well together. In fact, there's a lot of infighting that goes on. It's the exact opposite here. And when I bring that to others' attention on how closely we work with our fire department, that we train together, we debrief together, we share resources with one another. If we respond to an event and there was something we saw that needs to be changed, it's an open dialogue between both organizations. This is critical, and why I say it's critically important is because without that, how do we improve our service to our community? We're both first responders. Both organizations are out there for the same purposes, to make sure that the quality of life in the city of Janesville is safe, and that those that are in need, we provide immediate services to them. And it's been a great working relationship. And with Chief Murphy getting promoted shortly after I had been promoted, it's worked out very well for both organizations.
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
So now that your second year as police chief is coming to an end, are there any goals that you have for the JPD entering your third year of leadership?
I think still continuing working internally on our work-life balances. We've been working pretty systematically with short staffing, and now that our numbers keep coming up, and the reason we were short staffing, I should clarify that, it wasn't because of any internal strife or issues, it was rather through attrition. Our agency had started to get older, and the retirements started to go in succession almost rapidly on us. So rapidly that 11-month gap we already talked about with the testing process and things, it caught up to us. And to fill those vacancies takes time, and you have several people leaving within that time, you become short. So we're filling all of these voids, and those that are working are getting called in or held over, and it's creating an imbalance that with their personal lives. Through an internal climate survey, that information had been brought to my attention, and we're actively pursuing trying to balance that out so our officers know that they're being respected and treated as a human being, and not just as a resource that we need to throw in on the streets. So, but then externally, the biggest focus is that continued connection with our community, our business partners, our community partners, some of the committees that are throughout the community as well. We're working closely with BID and Forward Janesville in the downtown area to try to ensure there's safety there with some of the camera systems and things that we're working with on that. So those will be the heavy focuses. And last but not least, because we're a young organization, training.
Yeah.
Make sure that our staff is fully trained.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Well, Chief, we are just about out of time, but before I let you go, if folks at home are interested in learning more, or they're curious, they got questions, how can they reach out to you?
My information is on the city website. They, by all means, can get my email address and email me directly. If they're looking at an interest in pursuing a career in law enforcement, Sergeant Benji Thompson, his information is also on there. Reach out to him. He does all of our training and coordination efforts. He's a busy man, and he does a great job at it. So, by all means, email me, call the Janesville Police Department. I'll be more than happy to talk.
Awesome. Well, that just about does it for us today. Thank you so much for joining us, Chief Pearson. On behalf of myself and our viewers, I'd like to express our gratitude for the safety you and all the members of the Janesville Police Department provide.
Thank you so much.
Speaking of our viewers, I want to thank everyone for tuning in today and for all you do to help make Janesville a vibrant and diverse community to discover life's opportunities. I invite you to stay connected with the city by following us on Facebook and Instagram, signing up for notifications from the JPD via the Nixle app, and signing up to receive city press releases by visiting janesvillewi.gov/email lists. For Park Place Views and the City of Janesville, I'm Betsabe Ramos. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you again next month.